How's everybody doing? I just got off the plane from being in Africa. I still have the clothes on, but I was so anxious to get back to work and to do what I love to do. The pictures are being uploaded on Facebook and on YouTube with all of my adventures, being in France, being in Mauritius, Nairobi, in Kenya, and in other parts of Africa that I had the pleasure to actually have visited. It was a wonderful experience. I loved it. You've got to join Dream Trips, www.thepeoplesastrology.dreamtrips.com. Go into my website and ask me all kinds of questions, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. But if you want to ever join me in some of these trips, you can. So just let me know and I'll talk to you more about it. I'll get the right people to talk to you about it. But I can do that for you as well. Now, let me tell you, the experience there is unlike any other. And I'm gonna make a special video to discuss it in on a more deeper esoteric level what I really experienced there. Okay, hopefully you'll like the pictures and videos I'm gonna be uploading throughout the day in Facebook. Okay, that's it. I want to thank you for your donations. Thank you so much for your donations. And because this is paid content that you provide monies, and I continue giving you the information. And I have my website, thepeoplesastrologer.com. I'm going to have to start being more advertising-ish, like when it comes to my websites. My focus is just doing the videos and let everybody else manage all of my other accounts. But it's time also that I start paying attention to the content that I provide for you at medium.com, the anthropological series. A lot of the things that I did today when I was this whole week being in Africa has a lot to do with my background in anthropology and my aim towards going towards my doctoral thesis in cultural anthropology. So this was a trip that also served two purposes: leisure and also academic education, which is what I talk about when I do medium.com. Okay? So, without further ado, today we are going to talk about someone's trying to contact me. Mercury is retrograde and it won't let me stop the call. I apologize for that. For those of you who are interested in personal readings, you can call me at any time. Tomorrow is Tuesday morning, so I can do the consultations, and there's some of you that I haven't that have paid and have not gotten the consultation. So I want you to call. You know who you are, and I'll give you more hours. Okay? Very very good. Maybe you might help me. Now we are going to. I don't know if I'm going to do compatibility or incompatibility of signs. So I'm going to look through my logbook, right? And I'm going to see which one is missing. Okay. The first thing that jumps to me is Aries, Taurus, Taurus. I believe I've done Taurus, Taurus. Yes, I've done Taurus, Taurus. Aries, Taurus, Taurus. So that's done because I don't want to duplicate videos. Sometimes I do that. So let's not do that. But did I do Taurus and this is why Aries. Taurus, Cancer I've done already. Okay, let's take a look. Let's look at Gemini. Gemini and Sagittarius. I believe I've done Sagittarius and Gemini. Have I? Okay, so I'm going to go with Sagittarius and Gemini, which is compatibility of signs. We are talking here about fire and mutable fire and mutable air. These two represent opposite polarities of the same pole. The third house and the ninth house. Both the third house and the ninth house, both Gemini and Sagittarius are mental houses, mental signs. So the battle and the significance of life and death and the meaning of life in general will be directed in this incarnation towards the mental plane. So it is here where we must begin if we're going to discuss compatibility of signs dealing with Sagittarius and Gemini, mutable air and mutable fire. You cannot have combustion without air. Air serves no purpose if there's nothing to oxidize. And that oxidation usually occurs combustion, which again leads us back to fire, Sagittarius. So these two signs work in tandem. Oh yes, this is rum and orange juice. It's my last call before I stop drinking and then I take care of business in the day in the morning. So these are two signs that are compatible. And these two signs are also quite restless. They're restless mentally, and they're also restless in their inability to stay put, to see things to completion. Uh, Number three, which correlates to Gemini, deals with the jump start of things, getting things going. There's nothing sedentary or lazy when it comes to Gemini. Gemini is mutable air. It is the wind that cools our bodies when it's overheated. It is the wind that gives us that chill in the middle of winter that makes us tighten our coats even tighter. It is that wind that causes us to hold our hat together before it's blowing into the wind. It is that wind that causes women to go, oh God, it just undid my hair, look at my eyelashes, because now the hair just did everything, put everything out of whack after she came out of the beauty parlor. Air is the air that we breathe that allows us to continue the life that we call life on this earth. Because without air and the elements in that air, nitrogen, argon, CO2, oxygen, nitrogen especially, will keep the lungs expanded and open. Without it, we have lung collapse, which is what nitrogen washout is, or the bends when you go deep scuba diving. That's also mutable air. Mutable air. It is the air that can also be manipulated, like in a chemistry lab when you deal with all different kinds of laboratory experiments, which belongs to the realm of Sagittarius, the ninth. The third house, Gemini, represents elementary school, high school, secondary education, parochial school, charter schools, the lower mental nature of the ego, the shadow aspect, the Jekyll and Hyde. Gemini represents actual dualities in personality. In Sagittarius, we see a merging, a union of that polarity through Sagittarius, which binds both twins into one concentric whole. And that is seen in the caduce of Mercury, the snakes that bind themselves together in the caduce. The arrow is Sagittarius, while the two snakes represent the duality of Gemini, which causes the caduce. It's deep. It's deep. This is the central polarity of Sagittarius and Gemini. Where do we see this in the context of the human personality and ego? Is the question that should be asked. Mm, the gods are working today. This is the energy coming back from Africa. I hope you can use that energy for your own selves. And that's my gift to you. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Say hello to my brother Bruce and my other brother, my twin brother Nando, and then Abelino, my other brother, and my sisters and the rest of my family. Brought gifts for all of you. Well, let's continue now. Now, how do we see this in the context of human personality? Let's start first with the Gemini man and the Sagittarius woman. Listen, before we do go there, let me, they're telling me to make sure that I discuss nature. And they like to put music to make it look like I'm listening to music. I know why they still do that. But here we go. When it comes to nature, it's really self-explanatory. Fire itself. You cannot have fire without air. I mean, and this element is is actually foreseen in every aspect where you see fire, and only fire. Fire in itself is an explanation of the two, because you cannot have fire without air to oxidize it to combust. Otherwise, there's no air. There's no fire. Without the air, there's no fire. So they're both together. So that right there is your symbol. The actual element of fire itself is the fusion of both Gemini and Sagittarius. Mutable, containable fire and mutable, containable air. And air can be blown fire to and make it heat, like an air conditioning, cold, or a heater or hearth, where it can warm you at night from the coldness of the elements, or it can do the opposite. Give you nice cool air when it's too hot in the environment and you have to go to an air conditioned room. Do you see the polarity of Gemini and Sagittarius? It's hot outside, it's chill and cold inside, and vice versa. Okay, so that right there is your element. Now, good. Let's jump now to how this correlates to nature. Dealing with first the Gemini man and then the Sagittarian woman. Alrighty, alrighty. Let's put this right here. But this is a little bit like a little annoying. Okay. With the Sagittarian man, this symbol or this principle is symbolized in nature by his movement. His movement and his ability to go totally the opposite direction. And never stand still. His movement is the friction that gives rise to the fire, which becomes Sagittarius. That friction within Gemini is the inability to stay still, because if you stay still, the stimulus of the fire from within will not be sparked. And if this is not sparked, then the Gemini man's mind will not be stimulated to move and to think and to roam. What stimulates Gemini to get up and just go anywhere, sometimes without letting you know, without warning. You've seen my videos on the Gemini man. What makes him just get out of nowhere like that? Just jump out of the bed or jump out of the seat, or sneak out in the middle of the night and just go anywhere. What makes him do that? It is the spark, the instinct of Sagittarius pulling him out into bigger and better horizons. It's better and greener in the other side. That spark gets up, must get up and move and act. And before you know, the fiery flame of Sagittarius has fueled him somewhere else. This is how you see the impulse of Sagittarius in Gemini. And the same thing is seen in Sagittarius, in the opposite polarity. What makes the Sagittarian man, now flipping it, what makes the Sagittarian man be so restless? What makes him also change philosophies at will? Well, the mind of a Sagittarian man or woman is a Rubik's Cube, where you're moving. And every angle in truth is relative. So the truth can be the same in different angles of that Rubik's Cube. So there's no such thing as a lie. The duality of Gemini, which gives you different perspective of the same truth. On which side of the cube are you going to see its truth? It doesn't matter which polarity. It's still the same truth, just in different perspectives. So this is the psychological pull and impulses that you see in Gemini with Sagittarius. This cannot be curtailed and cannot be contained, or it will kill the spirit, the very essence of the Sagittarian man and the Sagittarian woman. Still though, that really doesn't answer why these two are considered compatible. Well, they're compatible at the end of the day because they can stimulate each other's curiosity. And since they both, in a way, live in their minds, if there's any kind of discomfort or any kind of opposing view, they can easily withdraw into their own camps mentally and not have to care. Because at the end of the day, they know that all is relative, right? All is relative. Both Gemini and Sagittarius know that. So why argue? Why push the issue further? So they don't. You see? But this is more the case when we're dealing with the more mature, past age 30 type. Because we're dealing with anyone that's below age 30 and doesn't know themselves. This can be a battle of wills and a battle of who's right and who's wrong. And it can get bitchy and petty very quick, very fast. True, it can happen where you are much older because the psychology of Gemini and Sagittarius never really grows up. They can be grown as adults and still be functioning as children in this way and hurting each other according to how they were hurt when they were in childhood. So it really depends on the psychological and mental maturity of these couples. And you really never really know because you might be dealing with a couple that is older and should be mature and should know better. And then those that are not mature and immature and don't know better. That also depends on mental conditioning. Mental conditioning plays a lot in how people interact and behave with each other. A lot of it is contingent on the psychology behind the backdrop of the experiences of each of these individuals. Now, more specifically, if you're dealing with the Sagittarian man and the Gemini woman, one thing about the Gemini woman is that she's very attractive. She's very beautiful. And the Sag man is a horse for that. So that shouldn't be a problem. The Gemini woman likes to keep things fluid and tantalizing, which keeps the Sagittarian interested and his flame burning, however so smoothly. Now, because he comes in different speeds, Mr. Sagittarius. Look at my videos on the Sagittarian man, and you see, put it all together now. So it depends really on which type of Don Juan is galloping into your driveway, your barn, above, and understand that the Sagittarian woman is the one. If we are to say who's the boss, who's the boss, it will be the Sagittarius, the Gemini woman. The Gemini woman will be the boss in the bedroom and outside the bedroom. And there's nothing that the Sagittarian man will not do for her because it whets his appetite. And she keeps things interesting and on cue. Now, if it's the Gemini man with the Sagittarian woman, it could be disastrous because the Gemini man, as handsome as he is and sexy and all that, it's Mercury and Virgo, the hustler, the playboy, all that stuff. The one that likes to do things in the dark, you know, hot. I ain't gonna lie, hot and sexy. Nothing more is more enjoyable and sexy than a Gemini man. Sometimes it's hard to decide whether it's Gemini woman or Gemini man because both of them are powerful contenders in this area. But the woman is more manageable and has more self-virtue and self-respect. The Gemini man, anything goes. So the Sagittarian woman who aspires so much might turn a blind eye towards it unless she becomes totally in love with him. She will eventually drop him and step on him like a horse steps on a cockroach. She has the ability to completely flip the script and say, you know what, I'm done. And gallop out of your life as easy as she galloped into that barn or driveway. So, what would be the recommendation with this polarity? Because I'm not doing a part two to this combination. There's no need to. I think I've explained in 25 minutes, we're about to, the actual dynamic and mechanism behind these two. It is the mental plane in which these two operate in. And if we're dealing with the young people, you have to allow the opposite polarity within the opposite polarity. What do I mean by the opposite polarity within the opposite polarity? Well, I've discussed the polarity of Sagittarius and Gemini, but I didn't discuss the polarity between the shadow of Gemini and the shadow of Sagittarius. You know, these two, with men and with women, are different and must be explained separately because it shows the lower nature of the ego of both of these signs. We have to understand that Gemini represents the child. Okay? Aries is the baby. Taurus is the toddler. Gemini is the child. The ego is still being formed. So Gemini, even as grown as men, that shininess and sexiness and childlike nature is the resemblance of that child that's still developing, which is why they're so curious and ask so many questions. This is the unfolding of the ego. That never dies with Gemini, both the man or the woman. But it is the shadow aspect of it if they don't understand that this is part of their nature and that if they don't find a way to control it and harness it where it can be positive and less chaotic, it can really control them. Sagittarius, being much older, his shadow side and her shadow side is encountering people more intelligent and more famous and more popular than they are. So therefore, they seek that which others have and will do anything to even be like them. The talented Mr. Ripley an example of a movie with Matt Damon, which expresses the shadow and dark side of Sagittarius. That boy was creepy. Wasn't he creepy? He even wanted to bathe in the same bathtub as him, you know, without even joining it. He wanted to be him because he didn't think that he himself was enough and then killed him, harpooned him to death in that boat and then tried to become him. Oh, the movie was dark. But that is the lower shadow of Sagittarius. Becoming one person and then flipping on you. Talented Mr. Ripley. He had many personality traits. Polarity is Gemini. Jekyll and Hyde. Is this making sense? And you cannot disown that. Not from Gemini and not from Sagittarius. Because it's part of the same polarity. And you need both. You know what they say? There's no such thing as good versus evil. Because nature represents both. And that's very true. And this same duality of good and evil, which nature represents, is also within each and every single one of us. And Gemini Sagittarius symbolizes that par excellence. Let that sink in. When I finish this delicious vodka from Mauritius, African vodka with a little bit of oranges. Delicious. Delicious. Okay, now let's flip it and let's talk about the actual developmental stages as we relate this with the moon. This is also the same if you're dealing with a moon in Gemini or a moon in Sagittarius. Now, this is the only sign polarity that actually is the same if you have the moon placing in Gemini or the moon placing in Sagittarius. Many people ask me, does this apply to the moon or to Venus? No, and I always say, no, it doesn't. This is an exception. It does apply to Gemini and to Sagittarius if you have the moon in Gemini and the moon in Sagittarius. When I start talking about the moon phases, I will revisit this theme again under the moon signs and go into more details about how this is expressed in the human personality and ego of both the man and the woman. And we're done with the segment.